Hello viewers, I'm in Lucy Brown's social media dungeon answering the big questions. I would say I have done enough travelling because I've done more than the vast majority of people on Earth will ever do. I'm sure of that, and I'm very grateful for the experience. I don't think travel narrows the mind, but I think claiming that it broadens the mind is often a very convenient excuse for spending too much time on holiday. I have had this argument with my peers, and I had it many years ago when we were all young, that people would go off travelling for a year. I never did this. They'd go off travelling for a year and maybe doing a bit of work as they went around the world, and then they would put that on their CVs as a qualification, as if it made them better equipped to deal with life and the workplace and business and human relations and all that sort of thing. Whereas I was never convinced that it did. I always thought, well, if I were somebody running a company and I looked at that on a CV, I'd think, you've been skiving. But on the other hand, I like to think I'm a reasonably broad-minded person, and it would be difficult to deny that my experiences of travelling all over the world and meeting just hundreds of thousands of people and talking to them and seeing how they lived and what their priorities are and blah, 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 hasn't affected the way I think about the world. Because I think it probably has, and it's probably made me a more tolerant, more open-minded person than maybe I was in my late teens, when I hadn't been anywhere really. Well, I suspect it's small interactions. I always tell the story about how when we were in northern Iraq doing the, this is in the Top Gear days, the Middle East special, we stopped at a roadside, what if you were in England would be a burger bar, but obviously it wasn't a burger bar because it's a different part of the world. So it was a it was a snack bar, effectively a largish caravan. The bloke who ran it appeared to live there, and it sold, sort of. God, my brain's really. What's the word? I'm looking.
Falafel?
It did have falafel, but it sold not tapas. Meze. Thank you, thank you, Lucy. Because it was in a very remote part, but there was a road there, and it was a trucking route and so on. So it was like a truck stop, and we decided to stop. I thought, great, we can go up and we can have a sort of a local snack. And I went up to the hatch on this thing, and this young bloke said, "Welcome in my country, Mr. Slowly." And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Because as far as I could see, he didn't have electricity, so he didn't have a TV or anything, but somehow he knew who we all were and what we were doing. And those little interactions with people, often with people who you can't converse with properly, teach you that actually, for all the sort of political manoeuvring that goes on in the world, at heart, humanity is largely unified by a desire to be at peace and have a nice, quiet life, as my sound recordist once said, full of stuff that works. And I remember another great moment. This was driving through Argentina. This is a trip that ended quite badly, and I can't remember which town we were in, but we were driving along in a bit of a jam, and I was slowing down in my car, and there was a guy probably about my age, this is a good 15 or so years ago, sitting on a bench at the side of the road, and I had nothing in common with him. Language, background, culture, colour. He was a black guy. There was nothing. And as I drove past, he looked up and he saw me, and I sort of nodded at him like that in a way that British people do, sort of, all right, mate. And he looked at me and he sort of went, and as I drove off, I thought, well, we're brothers now. That was a really nice moment. And there was nothing more to it than that. But I think that's what it teaches you, that there is a universal glue bonding humans together, and that if you strip away the stuff that divides us, you find that the burning kernel of our existence is uniform. That all sounds a bit woke and right on, doesn't it? But I do sort of believe that. A quiet life I think this was Dan the sound man, originally said this. He said it's a nice life full of stuff that works. A nice life is quite a broad definition because it depends whether you like playing sport or reading medieval poetry. But yes, it could be the UK. A lot of people are critical of the UK at the moment because they think nothing works. Like, the government's gone to the dogs, public services have gone to the dogs, the trains don't work, the buses are too crowded, the air's too bad, blah, blah, blah. But certain parts of the UK are deeply peaceful, I think. And I've found deeply peaceful places in the middle of Africa, various countries in Africa, various bits of the US, not necessarily remote ones that can be quite... I remember having moments of great peace in San Francisco, in Texas, in Japan. Where do things work best in the world of the places I've been to? It could be Japan, actually. I suspect that some aspects of Japanese life are quite high stress, but I can't remember anything in Japan not working and not being perfectly clean and shiny. Well, I suppose everything working properly can become a bit boring and predictable. It is a terrible cliche, but is nevertheless true that things often don't quite work out the way you thought they would in Italy. There's an appetite for a level of light chaos in Italy that seems to make Italy very Italian. I know this is all a terrible cliche, but it's a cliche because it appears to be true. And other things that aren't true is that I've been to India quite a bit, and people say, oh, India, it's all mad and it's all chaotic. But actually, it's not. It actually works very well. It just looks disorganised to a European, to a Westerner. But, the roads are busy in India, and you think, oh, the traffic's all over the place, and they blow the horn, and there's no rules, and there's no traffic lights, and nobody gives way. But they just have a different approach to doing it, and it actually works very well. It's all based on, after you, okay, you were there first, a bit of give and take, just make it work. Whereas we in Europe, and I think in Britain especially, we think, well, there's got to be a rule about that. You've got to give way, or you're not to stop there, or you must go past on that. And we become enslaved by those. Society should strive for as few rules as possible, not as many. I find it difficult to imagine living anywhere, certainly moving permanently anywhere else, because it would feel like a wrench. I think of all the places I've been, and you have to take into account things like language, because I only really speak English, apart from a tiny smattering of Italian and a few German expressions that are quite useful in pubs. I could sort of imagine living in California. I don't know why exactly, but I get a slight homecoming feeling when I go there. It sort of suits me. I might not suit them. They might think I'm a pompous, limey ass. But I like it. I hope that was at least reasonably interesting. These questions are being sprung upon me, and if not, do write, as everyone else does in the comments. That's 10.5 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
Call to actions? Please?
You'll give up eventually, Lucy.
I'll put them on the screen.
Well, you can do that. That's your responsibility. I'm not going to say it. I think it's wrong. This is a hill I will die on.